Chapter 7. Logic and Intuition. Hysterectomy. Through reading 32 years of my journals in the first year of the lockdown, a newly single 40-year-old woman who just had a ravenous yet necessary hysterectomy, I felt a physical manifestation of all the pain in my life manifested into my female organs finally go. It was taken from me. I wrote that a black bowling ball of misery of my past was taken, gone. The scars that manifested into cysts and cells that looked funny. The hysterectomy took away the stored cellular memory and all the pain I physically felt, mentally, sexually, spiritually, and emotionally. From that void, I grew. The knowing it had to go. The logic it had to go. The harmony in the healing. Suddenly, I was questioning all things about my femininity, my sexuality, myself as a mother, myself as a partner, myself as an entrepreneur who found herself often consulting or teaching or writing by herself. I made some frightening discoveries about where I learned these patterns and behaviors, and how I repeated them for years. I was now being given a gift to do some analytical psychology on myself. In the virtual counseling sessions with Arthur, I could really dive into the process of how I got myself to where I found myself and what I was going to do about it. I was now at a familiar place, questioning religion and organized belief systems, because the patterns of my past had shown me when I feel most alone or lonely is when I want to turn back to my false inner self and self-guide and self-direct somewhere dark, or shadowy, or toxic, or unhealthy, or void-like. But I was also at a new place, questioning psychology. The absolute gift of being able to read my journeying through this pathway set out in my journals showed me what I taught myself, what I seemingly conformed to, and that I was able to easily choose to move forward differently. This didn't come without boatloads of tests, lessons, dark places rising up in me, and that void wanting to suck me back in. Temptations and lusty situations, some morally wrong, rose to test my commitment to this journey to not do what I'd done before. Newly single, I was constantly getting the question, "Have you met anyone?" I hadn't, and I wasn't looking. What was around me was more of the same of what I had, and while I didn't want to repeat the journey I already took, I had no idea what I wanted. I continued to put one foot in front of the other in my Blundstones and lumberjack fleece plaid jacket and let people assume I was gay, as one courageous hockey mom shared with me after hearing the rumors. That's an easier resolve than explaining I have no idea where I am and what I'm looking for, wandering around again like an odd duck of sorts. Only, I didn't feel like an odd duck. I knew I was flying in a new airstream, reaching new heights in my analysis of myself. Right before the hysterectomy, I was dating or seeing an old acquaintance, and he was older. It felt like a secret relationship, and it was. And it was also an old pattern and an old behavior of mine, being less than. The men who I let harm me, leaving scars on my uterus, were people who I let in who weren't safe. This person was the same, and his priority wasn't to make me safe. When I got the surgery, I didn't see him again for over 2 months. A few weeks before, he gave me a gorgeous birthday dinner, custom cake, sapphire bracelet, and I felt like a queen. And then I felt discarded. I chose someone who love-bombed me, who wasn't rooted in their values, and I wasn't rooted in mine. I needed the experience to feel that again, the feeling of going out again and reviving that side of myself. But I also needed to be on a new path with a new flock. Finding that mate for life, that owl to share the nest with. Moving away from what I didn't want to have. I didn't want the mask I had been wearing to conform to the story that behind every matching outfit family photo on the front of our annual Christmas cards were truly happy individuals. That illusion of what happiness is started to crumble, like a castle built on sand. It was easy to throw in the towel and do what's being done before. It was easy to let our thoughts default on what have become beliefs and make them our new and old operating systems that create patterns and pathways and destinations. I know, I've done it over and over and over. This is the fuck-its, and this is what kept me stuck in addiction for many years. Why? Fear. Fear tells us that taking the route we've taken before, or one that everyone else is conforming to, is the way. Fear is protecting us from the world around us, telling us to stay quiet and sheltered and look like everyone else. It's what comparison and doubt and jealousy thrive on, feeding from low-hanging fruit. Knowings is knowing we are made up of not just the body, but also the soul. It's something tangible, but also intangible. What do I mean here? Well, quantum physics shows us that some things about energy. Remember, we started out this book talking about energy. We have to get clear on this point to move through the method, because it's important to see that we move through is nothing to get something. Let me explain. The physical and emotional body is composed of so many seen and unseen things. Things that only radio microscopes can measure. Cells and DNA and atoms and protons and neurons and electrons that all have jobs but are different. Physical and emotional body is composed of so many seen and unseen things. Things that only radio microscopes can measure. Cells and DNA and atoms and protons and neutrons and electrons that all have jobs but are difficult to completely understand. Theories that were deemed absolute, like DNA cannot change, are being proven wrong by theories that show different outcomes. That's the world with knowings in it. It's a little bit different, feels a little bit different, and allows us to act a little bit different. We can't help but change because we've been thinking about change. The physical body, while composed of cells, can be broken down into tiny parts making up a whole. The whole is something seen, our body. So if the body is composed of unseen things now seen, our thoughts can do that too. At that point, we can put it under the microscope. At that point, we can't put it under the microscope anymore, just like a thought. But thoughts become things. Things become beliefs and truths. Things we can't see influence the physical realm. This is what I'm talking about. This is knowings, where the mind and spiritual self are seemingly invisible moving forces that impact these cells in the physical body. Some might say that it's just what it is. It's an invisible energy from our minds that shapes our bodies, our relationships, our connections, our work, and our healing. How? Thoughts become things. Things become beliefs and truths. Beliefs and truths become our values. Values become our roots to ourselves. Our roots become our new growth for a plan. Our shift in perspectives gives us the courage to keep moving through the plan, through the new plan, not allowing ourselves to get stuck in old blocks and patterns and easy route things. Radical honesty. The book Reveal changed my life. Quote, "You will have to find the journey, pilgrimage, or spiritual practice that will forge a meeting with the soul voice inside of you. You will have to go through your own discernment process to distinguish the voice of fear from the voice of love. The veil that lifts is this. There will never be a voice outside of you that is wiser than your soul voice or holds more authority over that which is best for you. You need guidance and support not to follow someone else's truth, but remain loyal to your own." Megan Watterson, Reveal. A sacred manual for getting spiritually naked. I read about a woman with a higher degree from Harvard who's a theologian and writes about everything I've ever felt about the story of the Bible and how much it feels wrong, how there's missing information, and, historically, things were changed for political benefit or taxation agreements. She was brutally honest about what she feels and what signs she notices. She wrote about her pilgrimages to listen inside caves and follow pathways others before us have followed. She's following a remembering. It gave me permission to feel what I was feeling, to know that what I'm feeling isn't crazy, to know that my deepest desire to live in love and not be bound by attachments or chains to fear, control, or resentment or dependency or doctrines of telling dogma that make their communities smaller and smaller, not wider and greater. A lot of people come to see me for permission to follow through on a thought or a hunch or a sign and explore what else is there. They know that a world of doing what we've always done is not all there is. Danielle Laporte wrote in the Desire Map years ago about tuning into how you want to feel over what you need to do. It came into my life at a time when I was desperate to be seen and relevant in the work world, and I was in a women's group processing all these who am I questions rising up. I was with other women who were being brutally honest about the markers 10 years down the road from where I was if I didn't stay on the path and didn't tune into what I was feeling. These women walked with me through the finding of myself and losing myself and finding myself again, the journey we were all on. It meant going against the grain of the world a little bit and letting life happen at the same time. Babies, teenagers, stay-at-home mom work, single woman in her 40s with no kids life, divorce, job changes, societal patterns of hierarchy and patriarchy, and how it all felt wrong. Being able to feel radically honest is being able to hear yourself first. When you're guided by a new light, a new source, you're guided with love. When you're radically honest with yourself, things coming to your mind or to your lips and off your tongue will surprise you. Not so much, did I just say that as loud, as, oh shit, now I have to actually do it. Radical honesty is about the fact you'll have to change. You'll have to choose to change. Choose to make a decision to identify the fear, push through your ego, have the courage to take a leap of faith on a new pathway that you feel is right, and tune into your knowing that it aligns with your values and you trust it. Then you choose to be on the pathway to change. The choice to change will come with all kinds of temptations that you will face. Thoughts that go against what is on your path. People coming and offering other things. Job offers and raises and salaries to keep you in a role you know you can do, but isn't for you. Staying in a relationship where you have one foot out and are unwilling to put 2 feet in. Nudges to change your university program, moving out of what others expect of you and moving into what you know you're called to do. Saying no to that arranged marriage or career to appease others as you know it will set you up for a life of living hell. Picking your poison is something you'll do for the rest of your life. You'll be faced with the things that tempt the path to tell yourself you're on. What's your poison? Whatever you give power to or make an idol or feel a dependency to. You'll try to eat healthy and you'll be tempted with travel and food and things to take you off track. You'll want to leave your work and make a story you can't because of a money dependency. You'll want to have hard conversations in your relationship and always hold back your truth to keep their peace, only giving you an inner hell feeling. You'll want to book a trip away to explore a part of yourself and your values, adventure, connection to ocean, hiking a wonder of the world, conquering a challenge of landing on each continent. But meanwhile, you put the blame on other people and things in your life as the reason you can't go. You'll feel a shift in your connection to spirit and feel too much shame to tell people you're exploring it and trying a new practice. You'll want to speak your truth, but instead you live in a lie for years, if not decades. When you say no to others, you say yes to yourself. Being able to hear yourself is a new level of self-care and self-protection. Safety is key in all of this work. Many dive in and go fast, too fast. They want all the feelings and shift and miracles to happen all at once. Instead, they get a spiritual hangover of sorts and are more lost and more confused, while sometimes what the body needs is periods of deep rest. I see many chase teachers and destinations, thinking they'll fix themselves there, only to find everywhere they go, they still feel that sense of uncertainty and loss and loneliness, just somewhere else. Yoga in the West is a chase for the best body and the longest handstand, whereas in the Eastern practices are about tuning in differently. When I was in India for the first time at 18, a woman wanted to practice yoga with me and insisted I be at her house before sunrise at 4 a.m. I was to bike in the dark on dirt roads with no streetlights in Gandhinagar and Gujarat so I could practice yoga. I was still in the mindset that yoga was for the body and a physical change would ensue, not realizing the work was in the practice of getting there before sunrise and staying committed to that practice and growing from there. Young minds want fast rewards. I didn't have the courage to see it differently then. I was only listening to the ego of my desire, not to the real pathway to transform and change. Signs. Once, in my first year of university, I was in a meeting for a volunteer group when a woman took a call on a flip cell phone. It was her daughter who nannied in France the year before and was asking if the mom knew anyone who could go this year. The mom put her hand over the mouthpiece and asked our small group. On a hunch, I said that I would, and I signed up right there. I got the family's number, and within a few weeks it was organized. My dad was a pilot, so getting flights was easy as signing up for a pass. On my way there, I stopped in Montreal, and walking past a collection of payphones, a man called me to ask me if I knew how to use them. His French accent was thick, obviously not French-Canadian. He told me he was headed to Calgary, my city, for university. I told him that after a summer in France, I would be back. I taught him how to put a quarter in the phone, and we went on our way. We met again. We became fast friends. He was much younger, but fun. He came to my family's house for dinner, and we would laugh at the Canadian ways. The next summer, I wanted to head back to France, and he called his parents and arranged that I could stay at their house in Paris and come and go as I please. It was wonderful. I was young and curious, and people wanted to show me around and take me out. I had morning café au lait and a sunroom in the kitchen in a home hundreds of years old, full of souvenirs and worldly things. It was colorful and chic, historical and new to me. Following the signs of this call led to years-long connection, and we still chat today about his record label, On Soul, and all the things he's up to now. If I didn't follow the sign or clue of the woman who asked if anyone was interested in going, I wouldn't have led myself to that amazing journey a few years back, living and working back and forth from Europe. Miss Baxter told me to order a book called Messengers of Light. In the pages of that, I learned you could write to spirits or people on the other side. On the other side were people who died or crossed over. In that book, you can write letters to people and communicate in that way. You can ask for things or ask for signs. Another psychic taught me to ask for things, like a sign of a yellow duck if my plans on my pathway are aligned for what I desire, and to understand that it might come as a toy or a picture in a kid's book, or a text that mentions yellow duck. This isn't testing God or challenging it in a show me or I won't believe kind of way. No, that's forcing and controlling the outcome. This is about surrendering that you don't know it all and don't know the way and need to look for clues. People are scared of death. They are scared of the unseen and the unknown. It's easier to believe in a place that sounds nice than I don't know place. It's easier not to think about it. But not thinking about it makes people sick. It makes people unable to zoom out and see a bigger picture and a new perspective on death, loss, and grief. People who come to see me around death carry so much fear and shame about what they did or what they said, and letting go is very hard. I had a woman approach me at a retreat, and she said she was finally ready to talk. She lost her mom and her dad in the past year, and the last time she saw her mom, she hadn't said goodbye as she thought she should. She hadn't said goodbye as though it was the last goodbye. She was carrying the guilt for a whole year about what she couldn't change and couldn't fix until she shifted her perspective and saw it differently. She could fix it because she could fix herself. She could fix it because she could write a better ending than that one. Often we tell ourselves something is the way and it has to be, when that's the lie. We can tell a better story. We can tell a better ending. We can tell a story more on legacy and remembering than one on the one thing that didn't happen. She needed a sign to know that's what it was. She heard me talk about death and life and grief, and how acknowledging grief is a monster we need to tame. And when we do, it's a mean monster thing. It's unpredictable, and it follows no logical process. It's feeling down, feeling sad, feeling longing, crying randomly, conversations in our head we didn't have, and thoughts that can send us into spin cycles to keep us stuck in what isn't true. The truth is we can grow in it. The truth is we can grow from it. Knowings is essentially about feelings, seeing, hearing, and knowing the signs. Signs come to us in all different ways. In the metaphysical world, there are different levels of what the French call clair, or clairaudience for clearly hearing, or clairvoyant for clearly seeing, or clairsentience for feeling, or claircognizance for knowing. At times, people see signs through animals or other things in nature which are able to connect back to a remembering of things from our consciousness. We can find meaning from these intimate connections between ourselves and the patterns of nature and the animal kingdom and how they grow and survive and struggle and adapt and go through all the things that we're going through in the human experience. We also sometimes see in the patterns of nature what it looks like to be wild versus what it looks like to be domesticated. We have animals that we've chosen to domesticate, or wild animals that we get very close to and earn their trust. At the same time, this is where the pieces of what true nature show us what can come out of a wild animal that's been domesticated. Here's an example of how the 7 stages of knowings method showed up when my son Cooper was attacked by a dog. It was a lot of fear around feeling the pain of seeing the physical pain of my child and then having to put our egos aside between the dog owner, my brother and Cooper's uncle, and myself as a mother and caregiver, and the person communicating and surrendering to the outcome with the authorities when bylaw, social services, and the Calgary police got involved. There was an intuitive knowing that I needed to stand up for my child and protect other children because of the unknown nature of the wildness of this dog. This didn't come without going to consult with people who had familiarity with dog behavior. I got my advice, and at the same time, I slipped back into my pride and ego. My brother got his own advice. We then had a difficult conversation when it came down to the Animal Rescue Agency wanting to take the dog back and go through its own pride and ego process of saving the dog's life and rehabilitating it, even when I had an intuitive knowing that this was something beyond being domesticated and changed. This was something that had to go back to its wild nature. This was such a hard process of forgiveness, grace, and love, and being in a family and understanding that my brother's family had lost its family pet. the most devastating feeling that something's been taken away. This object and symbol of love. It's also the hardest to understand and get to the place of feeling how my brother's family must have felt, going through all the motions of the kids losing a pet, not understanding and not being able to reveal all the details. When Cooper was healing, he wanted to go see the dog again because he couldn't imagine that the attack would happen again. In his little innocent eyes and innocent world, dogs wouldn't do that. We all must understand that sometimes things flip. Sometimes things challenge us. Sometimes things are very hard to come to a middle ground or find dialogue between two pieces. We are never without going through this cycle of fear, to pride, to courage, to knowings, to forgiveness, to grace, to love. Then we come back to the nest every single time, at the heart of the knowings, and either accept and forgive ourselves for the decisions we made, or accept and stand in the decisions that we've made. Either way, we have to push forward knowing that taking this as a life experience and having that intuitive journey will move us and others forward. Sometimes people believe that animal comes in spirit guide or something sent from the other side to teach us things. I'm on the fence with this belief system. I believe we can get our information about ourselves from observing patterns of nature, but I don't know for sure if there's a deeper connection. It's not something I was raised around, nor does my body naturally root or anchor into this idea, spirit guides or spirit animals. But just because it's not for me doesn't make it untrue. I'm just not the teacher for it. I'm more of the student of animal behavior and the mysteries around how they are and what they know. I have been shown the power of the animal spirit. Do they have souls? I'm not sure. Do they have spirit? Absolutely. Do they have a wild animal nature as well? Absolutely. Susan's dog, Abby, communicated with me, and this brought me to love animals and feel for the pain of animals in a way I was never taught to do as someone who was never raised with a dog. I never knew that a connection, that loyalty, that bond, that man's best friend, so to speak. I knew people had it. I knew people considered their animals like pets. I knew they considered them very close relationships, but I never knew there was a connection as deep as I was shown through my experience with Abby. My friend Susan is a horse jumper, and she went away to California on a competition for 6 weeks. She had someone taking care of the barn and her animals, and while she was gone, I didn't plan on visiting. The farm is a couple kilometers outside of town, and I was driving somewhere, and I had to pass the road that turns off towards her farm. As I was going by, I kept hearing an intuitive knowing or calling. There was this message for me, coming from somewhere else, saying, turn on the road, go to the farm, turn on the road, go to the farm, turn on the road, go to the farm. When I hear these things 3 times, or when the repetition comes in groups of 3, I know it's serious and to pay attention. It's also how I can discern within myself what's coming from my logical mind and what's coming from my intuitive self. A huge practice is learning to know the difference and come to a place of being able to discern and differentiate where the messages are coming from and coming in and through. Are they coming from our connection to our spiritual self, to our spirit guides, and to the source messaging? Or is it coming from our logical mind made up under that veil of concentrated thoughts, spinning here in the world? I knew that this message was coming from my intuitive self because I knew that physically I had to take action, like something in my body was turning the wheel to go down that road. When I arrived at the farm, there were open barn doors, and it felt desolate and eerie. Besides the horses in their paddocks outside, no one was around. Usually when I drive up, the dogs run out the lane and there's some kind of activity from the barn. Not that day. I walked around and it almost felt like no one had been there for a while, and I noticed some of the behavior from the horses were not calm, not natural. They were not just grazing in their paddocks. One of them was going back and forth, almost gnawing at the railing, exhibiting some signs of deep stress and discontent. When I went over to one of the horses, one tried to nip at me, and my first intuitive thought was that it must be hungry. I really wanted to wander around, and I couldn't shake the feeling. I didn't know where the dogs were, and I started calling out more and more. I made my way into the garage where the dogs' beds and food were. I didn't see any remnants of water or food either. I knew something was seriously wrong. I was trying to contact my friend, but she was in competition, so there was a gap between us being able to communicate. I heard a whimpering at the bottom of the stairs from the 4-car garage that has a cold concrete floor with one door leading to the house and one door leading into the basement, almost like an access to a separate suite. At the bottom of about 15 concrete steps that go down to the basement entrance was the dog Abby, and she was laying on the concrete floor shaking. She looked very weak and very frail. But there was something in the connection of her eyes looking up to me that communicated with me, "Oh, I called you here." That was the first time in my life I experienced feeling the sign from an animal and hearing the call and being able to come across kilometers of fields and roadways to get to what the animal needed. Abby ended up going to the clinic where she was put on various steroids, and it was brought to our attention she had an autoimmune disease and something now that required steroids and medication for her day-to-day. In that, there were miracles in more than one way of finding life. Discovering something that keeps you alive is also a miracle, not just a miraculous cure. Abby communicating with me on the highway was a miracle. I've had connection with Abby since that day and has transcended through love. This dog can communicate with me, and she took away my fear of dogs after the attack with Cooper. She took away my pride and ego of thinking that I know there's one way to communicate with animals. It gave me the courage to step in the understanding and reading some stories that other people have had about their intuitive connections with animals, and believing in that side that some people can communicate with them. I also know there's an innate, wild nature to animals, and we have to love them, but with boundaries all the same. I've had to go through a journey of self-forgiveness and having the grace to dive in and unlearn and change my thoughts of what I thought I knew about animals and how they can communicate and how we have this kind of authority over them. Yet we do have to have an authority over them when it comes to proper training. It's the same with ourselves in relationships. We have to have boundaries. But we can also connect differently, and this is something that when we're ready to learn the new way, the signs, symbols, and things that are here to show us other messages will start to appear more frequently. Many people believe that synchronicities are something we need to pay attention to, and I agree. Others use terms such as coincidences, fate, destiny, divine timing, answered prayers, miracles, and messages from fill in the blank. We get the opportunity to call it what we want. So whether the signs come through us through symbols, objects, feelings, visions, or auditory messages, it doesn't matter. But what we need to do is be aware of all the different ways the signs come in and then open ourselves to pay attention to them.